Hi, and welcome to Cooking in Mike's Backyard. Today I'm really excited. We're going to be doing a crawfish boil. If you've never done a boil or never even been to a boil, let me tell you, you don't know what you're missing. They're a party in a pot. This is something about a bunch of good friends sitting around a table, big pile of seafood, people picking what they want, drinking beers, listening to music. It's communal. It's food for the soul. And every region's got its own take on the boil. There's in New England they do a lot of lobster boils. As you move south to Maryland, it's all about crabs. Around the Gulf, Georgia, Florida, South Carolina, they do a lot of shrimp boils. In Louisiana, the crawfish is king, and that's especially true in Cajun country. Now, a lot of people don't know this, but the Cajun people used to be Canadians. Around 400 years ago, they migrated from Nova Scotia down to Louisiana. Now, folklore says that the lobsters of Nova Scotia were so sad to see them leave that they followed the Cajun people down to Louisiana. But the trip was long and arduous on the lobsters, and after a while they started shrinking up and getting smaller, and by the time they got to Louisiana, they were crawfish. Now, the Cajun people didn't care. They were so glad to see them, they threw a big party. And that was the first crawfish boil. It's a lot of fun for the Cajun people. It was probably less fun for the crawfish. In order to do a crawfish boil, you need to have live crawfish. Unfortunately for me, I could not live any farther away from live crawfish than I do. Fortunately for me, there's the internet. There's a lot of companies online that'll sell you live crawfish. I've been doing crawfish boils now for about 10 years, and I've only ever used the Louisiana Crawfish Company. I'm not sure how I found them. They're just really great on the phone. The crawfish are always fresh, and most importantly, they always arrive on time. The last thing you want to do is have a big party and have your guest of honor show up late or not at all. It just causes a lot of stress. Now, the crawfish are going to arrive in a box like this. As soon as they hit the porch, I mean the minute they hit the porch, you need to get them out of the box. These guys were minding their own business yesterday in Louisiana. Someone scooped them out of where they lived, put them in a bag, stuffed them in this box, and put them on an airplane. There's not a lot of leg room in here, so we need to get them out right away. Now, inside the box, the crawfish are stored in these bags, like onion sacks. This is about 20 pounds. I got another 5 pounds over there. We're going to be doing 25 pounds today. Now, in Louisiana, they figure between 3 to 5 pounds per person. I've got some 5-pound eaters, but mostly they're more like 2 to 3 pounds per person. Now, another name for crawfish is mudbug. The reason they're called a mudbug is that they live at the bottom of still waters like lakes and ponds. In order to harvest them, they have to dredge the bottom of the water, and it turns up a lot of mud. Plus, the crawfish aren't stupid, and as soon as they know something's going on, they'll dig themselves farther down into the mud. So you really need to rinse them. Plus, it's been a long flight, and they could use a shower. Don't need to spend a lot of time doing this. Just give them a good rinse. Get some of that top layer of dirt off. Once you get them rinsed off, there's two things you can do. It's about noon now. We're not going to put these in the pot for another 5 hours. Some people just like to, after they rinse them in the bag, set them in a shady place and just hit them with a hose now and again until it gets closer to the time you're going to boil them. I don't like to wait that long. I like to move on to the next step right away. The next step we're going to call the rinse, sort, and purge. So in order to rinse the crawfish, you're going to need a container large enough to hold all the crawfish you have. I usually use a cooler. It's important that the container you pick have a drain plug, because what we're going to do is we're going to fill it up about halfway with water, put the crawfish in, fill it up the rest of the way with water, let them swim around for a couple minutes, drain the water out, and then repeat the process 3 or 4 times until the water that runs out is pretty clear. All right, after you get it halfway filled with water, just untie the bag and dump the crawfish in. Alright, and then we just fill it up the rest of the way with water. Alright, so the next thing we need to do is sort the live ones from the dead ones. You can't eat a dead crawfish. Well, actually you can. We're going to eat a lot of dead crawfish. But you can't eat a really dead crawfish. Think about the grocery store and the fish case there. All the fish in that case are dead. But you can be pretty sure that they died fairly recently, and they didn't spend a week decomposing at the bottom of a Louisiana mud pond. So we don't know when these crawfish died, the dead ones, so we're going to sort the live ones from the dead ones. In order to do that, you need a good pair of gardening gloves, a bucket, Actually, 2 buckets, one for the live ones, one for the dead ones. It is actually pretty easy to tell the difference between a live crawfish and a dead one. That's a dead crawfish. That's a live crawfish. Okay, when I go to sort, I find a cool place, shady, gonna be here for a little while, and I set the live bucket right here in front, and then the dead bucket back here. The reason I put the dead bucket back here is that as I'm sorting live ones from dead ones, as I said, crawfish aren't stupid, and sometimes they're playing possum. So I'll put the dead ones in here, but occasionally I'll look down, and if they're moving, they're alive, and if they're alive, they're going into the live bucket. Don't forget to use your gloves. You really need them. The claws are small, but they're really sharp, and they will cut your skin. In the beginning, when you're first sorting, there may be a lot of dead ones at the top. Don't panic. What happened during the rinse was that the live ones worked their way down to the bottom, leaving the dead ones on top. Just keep picking, you should be fine. Now, in the event that you had some sort of catastrophe and you have a lot of dead crawfish and you're starting to worry you're not going to have enough food to feed your friends, it's all right. Just send someone to the grocery store, get some unpeeled shrimp, and just put those into the pot when you cook the crawfish. And then instead of having a crawfish boil, you're having a crawfish shrimp boil. All right, now that we've got the sort done, we're going to purge the crawfish. Crawfish are a lot like shrimp, and they'll have that little black vein that runs down the tail. One way to get rid of that is to actually bathe them in salt water. It's called purging them. Some people like to rinse, purge, then sort, but sometimes the purge can actually kill the crawfish because they're fresh water and the salt water is not good for them. So that's why I like to rinse, then sort, and now I know all the crawfish that I'm going to purge are alive right now. And if they die during the purge process or sometime between now and the time we boil them, it's going to be okay. I remember that seafood case at the grocery store. If they die, they'll still be okay to eat. Now, in order to purge, you're going to go back to the cooler, you're going to fill it up with water, and while you're filling it up with water, you pour the crawfish in, and you pour in 1 cup of salt. Let them sit in there for about 3 minutes, not much longer than that, then drain off the salt water. All right, they've been in about 3 minutes now. I'm going to drain the water off. If you notice when I was doing the rinsing, I was just draining the water off into my garden. At this point, I've cleaned and rinsed so many crawfish that I probably like 1/4 of my backyard is actually Louisiana. But when it comes to the salt water, I don't like to run the water off into the garden because the salt's not good for the soil and it'll kill your plants. So I set this bucket up down here. I'm just going to drain it into the bucket and then pour it down the drain. All right, so now that we've done the purge, we're just going to leave them in the cooler, put some ice on it, stick it in a shady place until we have to get the boil going. Okay, in order to do a crawfish boil, you're going to need a large pot with a seafood basket. That's a 20-gallon pot. It's perfect for 25 to 30 pounds of crawfish. You can get a smaller pot, but I like to get big ones because that way I can always just fill them with less water if I'm making a smaller batch. You're also going to need a camp stove. These are a propane stove. You can actually do a crawfish boil in your kitchen, but there's a lot of pepper and a lot of spice in the water, and after a pretty short period of time, your kitchen's going to smell a lot like someone set off pepper spray in a fish market. So really, outside is the way to go. Okay, so you fill the pot so that it's got about 12.5 gallons of water in it, about 2/3 of the way full. The crawfish obviously going to displace a lot of water, also all the vegetables that are going in there. So don't fill it all the way up to the top. Now we're going to start this up about an hour before we want to start the boil, just because I don't want to be sitting around waiting for the water to heat up. If it starts boiling sooner than I need it to, I'll turn it off, and it'll obviously be a lot easier to bring up to boil when I want to boil it. Okay, so we got our pots going, starting to boil. Let's move now to the rest of the ingredients. All right, so the first thing you're going to need are 5 large onions, quartered. I could put them in bowls and try to impress everybody, but Ziploc bags work a lot better because they don't fall out and you can just keep them zipped up until you need them. You're also going to need 8 cloves of garlic. Cut the tops off of them. I put the tops in there. They go into the boil with the skin on. We have 8 lemons cut in half. I have 2 pounds of new potatoes. one red, one yellow. I like the little ones, you know, they're that size. You can use the bigger ones. If you use the bigger ones, just make sure you cut them in half. I also have 8 ears of corn. I generally calculate about 2 ears for every 3 people. And then I just break them in half or in 3s, depending on how long the ears are. I also like to add artichokes to the boil. These are already parboiled. We're gonna let them drain for a while, and then we put them in at the very end of the boil. In addition to the vegetables, we also put sausage in. A lot of people use andouille, but you can use any sausage you want. Hot links, andouille, kielbasa even. These are smoked hot links. I smoked them up yesterday. I'm just gonna cut them into pieces. I'll probably cut them into thirds so that you get a good sized piece of sausage. You can cut them smaller or bigger, whatever you like. All right, as far as spices go, Louisiana Crawfish Company, if you get the value pack, will include crab boil, or seafood boil, I should say. It's great. It's a mixture of paprika, black pepper, salt, onion powder. It's just got everything you're gonna need is in this bag for a basic boil. I like to spice it up a little bit. I'm gonna add some Red Rooster hot sauce. We're also gonna add some of this liquid concentrated crab boil. This is spicy, spicy stuff. We'll probably use the whole bottle for the 25 pounds. Yeah, it should be pretty tasty. You can mix your own seafood boil if you want. There's plenty of recipes online, but these prepackaged ones are really good and they work just fine. Okay, so about an hour before you eat, you add your spices. These are the boiling spices. Seafood boil. Oh yeah, look at that go. You're gonna toss in 10 bay leaves. We're gonna put in, ooh, you can really feel the spice, the shrimp and crab concentrate. We're gonna pour in a little bit of Red Rooster hot sauce. Just because my people like it hot. We're also gonna add in the garlic, the onions, and the lemons. Gotta squeeze them and just drop them in, skin and all. All right, now after you get your last lemon in, you're just gonna put the lid back on the pot. We're gonna let it boil for about 15 minutes. Okay, so the spices, lemons, the onions, and the garlic have been boiling for about 15 minutes. We're gonna put in the new potatoes and let those cook until they're soft. All right, the potatoes have been in for 15 minutes. It's time to add the corn, the sausage, and our friends the crawfish. Bye guys. All right, we're gonna leave the fire on until they start boiling again, and then we're gonna turn the fire off and let them steep for another 20 minutes. Okay, so the crawfish have been boiling now for about 10 minutes. Now they're starting to roll. We turned off the heat, we've added the artichokes, and we've pushed them down. We're gonna let the whole thing steep for about another 20 minutes, and then it'll be time to eat. So now that they've been steeping for a little while, we need to think about how we're gonna serve them. I like to serve them with French bread. Pretty much, you know, I always tell people, you know, it's all in the pot. Everything in the pot you should eat. You really don't need anything else, although I do like to make a dipping sauce. A traditional Cajun dipping sauce is just a mixture of mayonnaise and ketchup. You can also serve instead, if that doesn't sound good, you can serve cocktail sauce. But I like to make a sauce using the stock from the actual crawfish boil itself. Now while the crawfish are steeping, I'm just gonna open it up quickly and steal some of the broth. Okay, that's a good amount. Take a pot with 3 sticks of butter and just pour the broth right in there. About that much. To this I'm going to add about a half a cup of Worcestershire, and then I'm going to boil it up. Okay, the crawfish have been steeping for 20 minutes now. We're gonna pull them out, set them in this little bucket in the front here so they can drain. Just reminded that I should probably tell you guys, what I just did, I've done a lot. It's pretty heavy, it's very wet, it's very hot. So you probably want to have someone help you when you do that. So now that they're draining, we need to figure out what we're going to serve them on. I mean, I suppose we could serve them on a plate, but that'd be pretty boring. Another alternative is you can pour them into these pans and then place the pans on the tables. Still a little boring. Good option, if you have a big table, get plastic disposable tablecloths, have people hold the ends up, and then just dump them into the center of the table. They're holding the ends up to keep the crawfish from spilling off onto the floor. So that's a really great way of doing it. Or you could eat on your crawfish tables. All right, so then once you get it going on, you just go to the crawfish tables and just dump little piles of yumminess. All right, let's eat. All right, to peel a crawfish, just break the tail off. Take the top part of the shell off, pinch the base of the tail, and pull it out. Got some corn in there, some sausage, some artichoke,
garlic.
Whole cloves of garlic and potatoes. It's a good time. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed the video. We got through 25 pounds of crawfish pretty quickly, both in making them and in eating them, as it turns out. There wasn't a single crawfish left. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked it, please hit subscribe or hit the like button or hit both. I'm posting videos as often as I can. Have a good night.